Breaking news, the juvenile crime crisis takes another young life after a teen is gunned down. Your county leaders speak out as we continue to make the calls for change heard.
These laws are an abysmal failure and need to be changed before more kids die.
Discouraging state test scores in Baltimore's top schools. Fox 45 News Project Baltimore breaks down concerning testing data that hasn't been released to the public.
The public absolutely should see this data.
New insight into the city's flagship safety program.
There's no accountability.
Our team sits down with a former Safe Streets employee as he shares the multitude of flaws facing the department tasked with keeping you safe.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 10.
Good evening, I'm Kai Jackson.
And I'm Mary Bubala. A 15-year-old is shot and killed this afternoon in West Baltimore, the latest in a months-long juvenile crime crisis gripping our city.
At least 14 young people have been killed across Baltimore this year. Along with juvenile victims, we've also seen a number of juvenile suspects, igniting calls for change to state laws.
Now, the 15-year-old's murder, one of two incidents involving teens and guns this afternoon. It happened just before 4:30 near Gilmore Elementary School. So far, police have not named any suspects.
Around the same time, police say a juvenile shot himself outside Dunbar High School.
And tonight, we have team coverage on the juvenile violence as Mackenzie Frost and Jeff Abel hear more calls to address the crisis in Annapolis.
Fox 45's Keith Daniels leads us off with questions surrounding kids and guns following today's incidents. Keith?
Well, Kai, that shooting at Dunbar happened not far from where community members were meeting to talk about some of the challenges the city is facing. And tonight, weighing in on the latest violent incident involving youth. In Baltimore City, the continued disturbing trend. Shootings involving juveniles. Monday, 2 incidents. 2 young people shot. One of them, a 15-year-old boy, murdered. That gunfire erupting at about 4:30 in the light of day at North Gilmore Street near Lawrence Street. When officers arrived, they found the boy suffering from several gunshot wounds, pronounced dead later at the hospital. Then, outside Dunbar High School, a male juvenile shot. Police converge on a parking lot in the rear of the building just after 4 o'clock. Investigators determined the victim suffered a self-inflicted gunshot wound. It's unclear what led to the shooting or if the victim is a student at the school. Tonight, residents passing by Dunbar stopped at the light with their concerns about the shooting at the school and other gun violence involving youth.
It's easy to say if the parents are more involved, maybe they are, but I don't know, it's just unfortunate.
We have to keep talking about it and say something and do something, not just talk about it, but do something.
Not far from Dunbar, just 2 hours after the shooting, an already planned meeting to do something about it.
You've got young folks perpetuating some of the crime, but also being victimized by that same crime.
Reverend Todd Yeary is with the group Act Now, a faith-based community group working with city leaders to resolve some of the city's challenges and to hold city leaders accountable. Members meeting with the community at the Ark Church in East Baltimore on this night. Reverend Yeary talking just moments after learning about the latest violence involving youth and what can be done about the issue.
Well, part of the resolution is having clarity around the issue, the conversation. We cannot avoid having serious discussions about what's plaguing the city. I don't care how many police you put on the street. I don't care how much money you try to throw at the problem. If you do not have collaboration with community, you're never going to get to the source of our issues.
Well, regarding that shooting at Dunbar High School, we tried confirming earlier today whether that victim was a Dunbar student. This just into us. Police sources are telling us now they have confirmed that juvenile is a student at Dunbar High. Reporting tonight, Keith Daniels, Fox 45 News.
Keith, as we mentioned, 14 children have been killed in the city so far this year. The sadness started on New Year's Day. 17-year-old Deja Garrison was shot and killed in East Baltimore, part of a double shooting along North Glover Street. Just 3 days later, 16-year-old Deontay Dorsey was killed near Edmondson Westside High School. A 16-year-old was arrested in his shooting. In March, 16-year-old Isaiah Carter was gunned down at a park near Johns Hopkins Bayview. Carter was a student at Patterson High School. His killer was caught 2 weeks later in Texas. Then in April, 12-year-old Jalen Richards was killed in South Baltimore. His family says he was wearing an ankle monitor when he was killed, and they were trying to distance him from some of the adults in his life who were getting him involved in crime because they knew he wouldn't face charges.
Big people that don't want to take charges and say you're a 12-year-old that you will come home. They still was dragging my baby to the streets because he was a minor.
We've heard similar concerns from law enforcement. Baltimore County Police Chief Robert McCullough tells Fox 45 News police believe adults are using kids to commit crimes, knowing kids won't be charged if they're caught.
They are choosing the kid under age 13 to be the driver. So we have 11-year-olds with no license, no training, driving these stolen cars.
This January in Anne Arundel County, law enforcement came forward with more than 7 pages of crimes they say children committed, but were too young to be prosecuted. Today, the county shared new data showing 15 juveniles committed a number of crimes this weekend. Those crimes include carjackings, car thefts, and a robbery at gunpoint. 6 of the teens were arrested at one time outside of Glen Burnie Chuck E. Cheese. Police say teens driving a stolen car hit a car. They later robbed a sporting goods store. Fox 45 News is working to learn more about what happened.
Well, we have heard from police now. County executives and commissioners are joining the juvenile crime conversation. Fox 45 News sent questions to leaders across all 23 counties in Maryland. Jeff Abel joins us now live with some of this feedback. Jeff, this will be interesting.
Sure is. You know, we have reached out to leaders in every corner of the state asking county executives what impact these new reform laws are having in their counties. And we're getting an earful.
As the rate of juvenile crime soars, so do demands to reform Maryland's juvenile justice reform laws.
While these laws were enacted to protect children, they're actually killing children.
As a state senator, Bob Casserly opposed the legislation. Now, as Harford County executive, he sees the urgency in striking them down.
The fact that you intended to do something to help kids is irrelevant. They're dying. They're dying because of the votes that we took, the policies that we pushed forward. It's time to reverse course and do a gut check and do the right thing.
We've spent days reaching out to county executives in every corner of the state, asking about the impact of these reforms. In Dorchester County, Council President Lenny Pfeiffer writes, "This is negatively affecting our community. This has led to older kids and even adults coercing younger kids to commit crimes, knowing they are untouchable. We need help now." It's the same story in Wacomico County, where County Executive Julie Giordano writes, "The current legislation has unfortunately tied the hands of our law enforcement. I do not support this legislation because our youth need to be held accountable for their actions and should not be put in a position to be used by adults involved in criminal activity." In Howard County, Executive Calvin Ball says the new laws have hindered investigations, writing, "Recent changes in state legislation, while aiming to help ensure our young people have better access to justice, have made it in some ways more difficult to investigate and close cases in which individuals under the age of 18 have been identified as suspects." 8 of the 12 county executives support calling a special legislative session to deal with the crisis. Cecil County Executive Danielle Hornberger tells Fox 45, "The misguided and unconstitutional bills are making our communities less safe. It's time to pass legislation that will hold criminals accountable for their actions." Baltimore County Executive Johnny Olszewski writes, "We are supportive of discussions that revisit these existing laws and ensure there are appropriate levels of accountability for those who choose to commit crimes, regardless of age." In Prince George's County, County Executive Angela Alsobrooks writes, "When young people commit acts of violence against our community, whether that is against an adult or another child, they need to be held accountable, and we need to have the tools in place to be able to hold them accountable. And in Montgomery County, Executive Mark Elrich believes lawmakers must now fund the critical services juveniles need, or the problems will grow even worse.
When the legislature did this, I get the intention. I think it was well-intentioned. I know what everybody hoped. But if people need help and they're going to need treatment, and not putting in place programs that offer the help and treatment that people need, this is not going to solve anything.
Well, so far, the governor has not agreed to call lawmakers back to Annapolis to deal with juvenile crime. We're live tonight. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
Jeff, thank you. We have also heard from a dozen prosecutors across Maryland calling for changes to the juvenile justice system. Those prosecutors represent around 5 million people, nearly 82% of Maryland's population.
The state's attorneys are part of a growing call for action from top lawmakers in Annapolis. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost has the latest push for answers from House Speaker Adrian Jones and Senate President Bill Ferguson.
From rural red Maryland to more liberal blue suburbs, one thing is uniting elected and other leaders alike.
A mistake was made. Go back immediately, look at the legislation, and let's correct it. We'll work with you to correct it.
And the time is now. They're really looking at these issues.
This legislation has put our children at risk, our communities at risk, and the entire state at risk of extreme chronic violence.
The juvenile crime crisis continues to spark concerns for those seeing the impacts firsthand. Fox 45 News is inviting Senate President Bill Ferguson, a Democrat from Baltimore City, and House Speaker Adrian Jones, a Democrat from Baltimore County, to participate in a town hall with one topic in mind, and that's juvenile crime. We've emailed questions to their offices and asked in person, while Senate President Bill Ferguson pushes back on the notion of a lack of urgency.
It's something that I'm talking about with other members and my community every single day. It's probably the thing that keeps me up the most at night. While the overall numbers have gone down, this acute problem of kids with guns is a major issue.
So what do you say to the 6.1 million people in Maryland who argue that they're being impacted by these laws and by decisions made by you and other lawmakers, and they don't feel like anything is changing?
I mean, look, we're reviewing all of it right now.
Ferguson says juvenile crime will be a priority in January, but it's unclear what any potential legislation could look like for change. As for Speaker Jones,
do you believe that kids using guns in crimes is a problem that the House will address in January?
The Judiciary Committee will be dealing.
As Speaker, though, do you think that it's something that will be a priority?
The Judiciary Committee and all our committees, all their priorities, we hear. So, yeah, obviously.
Is it a priority for you? As a lawmaker here in Baltimore County, we saw kids using guns in Lansdowne. We've had issues with DJS.
Yes, obviously, yes. But I gotta go.
When will we see legislation to address that?
Well, we don't do session until January.
Should that change?
Excuse me?
Should that change?
Should what change?
Should there be a special session to address the juvenile crime crisis right now?
This is something I will be discussing with my chairs. I don't want to be in the media and saying, oh, Speaker didn't talk to us. We're going to be having meetings, so when that happens, you'll know.
A few hearings now and a legislative session starting in January isn't soon enough for the top law enforcement leader in Carroll County, who argues starting in January could mean more victims of young Marylanders who aren't held accountable for their actions.
If you don't work on this immediately and you say we're going to look at it in January and we're going to ask the governor to sign it in April, May, or June, and it's effective in July or maybe October, the wake of victims is going to be tremendous.
So far, we don't have a commitment from Speaker Jones or Senate President Ferguson to participate in that town hall. In the newsroom, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
House Speaker Jones and Senate President Ferguson are two of the most powerful lawmakers in Annapolis. If you want to talk with them about juvenile justice laws, we have their phone numbers, email addresses right there on your screen. You can also find their contact information on our website, foxbaltimore.com.
Well, the race for Mayor of Baltimore heats up. Fox 45 News asked the top candidates to participate in a series of town halls. The battle for the mayor's office could be a run between Mayor Brandon Scott and former Mayor Sheila Dixon. Fox 45 News reached out to both of these candidates and invited them to participate in multiple bi-weekly town halls. Well, so far, we haven't heard back from Dixon or Scott, but we'll keep you updated on their responses. And that brings us to our question of the day. Do you believe Mayor Scott and former Mayor Dixon should sit down for a town hall with Fox 45 News? So far, 90% of those who voted say yes. You can make your voice heard right now at foxbaltimore.com/vote.
Well, for now, we're stuck in the light rain, the light drizzle. You see the remnant circulation of Ophelia that's off to our north and northeast across New England, and that continues to spray. Yes, some moisture back at us overnight. Temperatures at 61 at BWI, 59 now at Aberdeen, 63 at Annapolis, and near 60 at Westminster and also Easton. You take a look there at the Toyota East Center Harbor Skycam. Not a whole lot of fog, but there could be some patchy fog overnight, and we could have some light rain and drizzle to keep those roads wet into tomorrow morning. I'm going to let you know if it's going to clear out for the O's game hour by hour. My Weather Authority forecast.
Coming up on Fox 45 News at 10 o'clock tonight, a Baltimore County woman shares her story with Fox 45 News after her car is stolen. She says the city rubs salt into her wounds by making her pay traffic tickets racked up by the car thieves. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost sits down with a Safe Streets worker, the knowledge he's sharing that leadership didn't want him to talk about. And reaction tonight to Project Baltimore's latest investigation that shows how few Baltimore City students are proficient in math. We hear from one family who says the school system set their daughter up for failure. Tonight, more reaction to a stunning investigation by our Project Baltimore team. They found only 11% of students at the best high schools in Baltimore are proficient in math.
And as Chris Papps reports, that data is not surprising to one family who thought their daughter was prepared for college, but found out she wasn't.
Desmond Stinney doesn't need to see state testing data to affirm what he already knows.
This is not surprising. The children they're not learning in the classroom anymore.
He doesn't need to know math proficiency rates or hear Baltimore City Schools' reason for why they're so low.
It's disappointing. It's disappointing that anyone would believe that this is acceptable.
Stinney doesn't need any of that secondhand information because he has firsthand experience.
You've sort of lived this data.
Absolutely. Since that time, I've learned how many other people have lived these same experiences.
In 2020, Stinney's daughter, Xaviera, graduated from Baltimore Polytechnic Institute, or Poly, one of the city's highest performing high schools. The honor student was accepted into one of the United States military academies. But Stinney said when she got there, she was not prepared academically, especially in math, and she nearly failed out. So for Stinney, what Project Baltimore recently found in this state data was obvious.
It's almost overwhelming. It puts you in a position where you feel like it's almost helpless.
FOX45 obtained this data from a source within Baltimore City schools. It's the raw, unredacted state test results from May 2023 for every school in the city. This data has not yet been released to the public, but we have it. As we first reported last week, we found 13 city high schools where 0 students who took the state test last spring scored proficient in math. But we also looked at the top high schools in the city and found this. As far as math proficiency goes, Poly, where Stinney's daughter went, performed the best in Baltimore. But even at the best, just 26% of the students at Poly scored proficient in math. The second best high school in the city, Baltimore School for the Arts, had just 10% of its students test proficient in math. City College and Western each had 8.9% test proficient. Overall, at the top 5 high schools in Baltimore, just about 11% of the students who took the test scored proficient in math.
I think the leadership, if it's not working, it's not working. If you're not getting the results, you're not getting the results. And anytime you're not getting results there, it starts with the leadership.
Can't keep putting money into a bad system.
Some city leaders agree with Stinney. Sheila Dixon, who is running for mayor, has already called for city school CEO Dr. Sonia Santelises to resign.
We need to hold the school CEO and the administration accountable.
We all understand that children are our future. But State Senate President Bill Ferguson stands by Dr. Santelises, saying no one person can be held accountable when students are undereducated.
I have a great deal of faith in Dr. Santelises. She is incredibly thoughtful.
What do others think? Project Baltimore sent this email to Mayor Brandon Scott and every member of Baltimore City Council, which gives city schools hundreds of millions of dollars in funding every year. We asked them, do you find these results acceptable, especially at the best high schools in the city? Do you support Dr. Santelises? Do you believe these results warrant a city council special hearing to question the school system? So far, we have not heard back from any of your elected officials. If we do, we'll pass along their response.
How's your daughter doing now?
She's great.
Meanwhile, Stinney told Project Baltimore his daughter worked very hard, and with the help of the military academy tutors, she was able to catch up academically with her peers. But he knows most students coming out of city schools will not be so lucky, which is why Stinney pulled his younger child out of Baltimore City schools. His son now goes to a private school.
We're setting them up to fail. The test scores are absolutely revealing the shortcomings of the classroom instruction.
I'm Chris Pabst, and this is Project Baltimore.
Our Project Baltimore investigation into math proficiency rates in Baltimore City led us to our question of the day. Do you trust the state school board to take appropriate action to improve public schools? So far, 95% of people who voted say no. You can make your voice heard right now at foxbaltimore.com/vote. Just click on that Pulse tab.
I'm Kayla Gaskins. Coming up, we'll share details of a concerning new report that highlights just how bad some of America's public education systems are performing.
We're tracking some light rain and drizzle overnight. It looks like temperature's going to be kind of steady in the damp 50s to right around 60 degrees. You may wake up to some wet roads with some of that patchy light rain and some of those spritzes around. And then for those game tomorrow, it's first pitch at 6:35. Battle of the Beltways against the Nats will be at 61 there. 5th inning, 60 and 59 during the 9th inning, and hopefully a big O's win. Go O's. A magic number, I believe, right now, 3. So let's take it down. All right, we've got some more rain on the way and some sun in the forecast, and near 80. Big changes. That's in my Weather Authority forecast.
And a live look at the Inner Harbor as we head to break. It's still a little wet out there, as Jonathan mentioned, as rain from Ophelia is hanging on for just a little bit longer. Taking a look now at the Fox Box. Top left, the White House is voicing support for striking auto workers ahead of President Biden's visit to Michigan tomorrow. He's expected to walk the picket line. Former President Trump will address union members in Detroit on Wednesday.
On the top right, former President Trump makes a campaign stop in South Carolina. He faces two rivals with strong South Carolina ties, the state's former governor, Nikki Haley, and Senator Tim Scott. Recent polls show Trump leading in the state, though.
Bottom left, Republican presidential candidates are facing a dilemma when it comes to TikTok. Several candidates have criticized TikTok because of security concerns, but it also is seen as an important way to engage with young voters. Vivek Ramaswamy recently became the first 2024 candidate to join the platform, despite calling for it to be banned entirely.
On the bottom right, the mayor of El Paso, Texas, says that city is at a breaking point amid an influx of migrants at the southern border. He says more than 2,000 people are crossing the city per day, straining resources. Some migrants are being bused to cities of their choice.
We stuck in a rat trap with nobody having the courage to say, we died.
Ahead at 10:30, a former Safe Streets employee shares his concerns about the program, why he says leadership needs to be stronger.
I was a victim once with my car being stolen. I was a victim with the insurance company, and I was a victim with the city of Baltimore.
Frustration as a woman says thieves racked up tickets while driving her stolen car. Why the city is threatening to take her car as a result.
We are following three big stories at 10:30. Stolen cars causing headaches for owners across Maryland, but the issues don't stop there. Why some people are receiving tickets when their car isn't in their possession.
Thousands of taxpayer dollars may have been misused by a Baltimore nonprofit. Fox 45 News investigates why the city may not have done its due diligence in making sure that money is going to a reliable place.
And more violence within Safe Streets zones as Fox 45 News gets an inside look at what goes on within Baltimore's flagship violence intervention program. Now, one person was shot, two others were stabbed in the Sandtown Winchester Safe Streets zone last night. A 38-year-old was shot and taken to the hospital. Two other people walked into the hospital with stab wounds.
Police say all 3 people were likely hurt during a fight at a nearby home. Anyone with information should contact city police. Now, a former Safe Streets employee who worked in Sandtown, Winchester, shares his experience in the program.
As Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost explains the story for us.
Sean Colbert argues there needs to be more leadership within the program to see success. And on Sunday, there was a shooting in the Sandtown Safe Street zone, so we went over there to see if we could find any sort of response. A ripped piece of crime scene tape on the ground Monday is a reminder of what happened Sunday evening.
The shot woke me up.
Neighbor Theodore White doesn't want his face on TV, but describes the scene he saw across the street.
And when I came in the door, then I saw the crowd and the police was out there.
A 38-year-old man shot, 2 others stabbed, and just blocks from where blood stained the white marble steps sits the Sandtown Safe Street site, the same spot where Sean Colbert used to work as a site supervisor for 4 years, helping to oversee the violence interrupters.
They identify and treat the high-risk individuals in the community.
But Colbert argues the leadership within the program and Catholic Charities as the nonprofit running this site isn't strong enough.
The upper management is failing them. And that's what I'm here for. That's what I'm talking about.
Colbert argues without clear guidelines and training, Safe Streets won't be as successful as it could be.
There's no accountability. There's no accountability. I mean, I don't know how else to say it, but it's not a workers' problem. It's a management problem. It's a leadership problem.
Colbert isn't alone in his frustrations with Safe Streets, which is often touted by Mayor Brandon Scott as the city's flagship gun violence prevention program.
It's wasting taxpayer money.
Back on Carey Street, Theodore White says he rarely sees the violence interrupters who are supposed to work just up the street.
They don't do nothing. I see them once in a while. Inside that, that's it.
We knocked on the Safe Street site door, but no one answered. Just a few minutes later, one worker says he heard about the shooting. Are you guys gonna go over there, or what happens now? Adding some workers would be going over to the scene later, but going inside and locking the door without telling us exactly when that would happen. We were in the neighborhood until about 2 o'clock this afternoon, and we didn't see any Safe Streets workers canvassing. BPD is asking anyone with information about the shooting to contact them or Metro Crime Stoppers. In the newsroom, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Fox 45 News has been investigating Safe Streets for years. You can find all of our reporting on our website, foxbaltimore.com.
Well, new documents uncovered by Fox 45 News show Baltimore City is trying to recover more than $100,000 from a local nonprofit that didn't do the work it was hired to do. The Lazarus Wright Foundation was selected to help clean up trash and debris on city streets. But as Rebecca Pryor explains, the group is now being accused of wasting your money.
A local nonprofit tasked with picking up trash across the city, now accused of wasting thousands of taxpayer dollars. Under Mayor Brandon Scott's Clean Core initiative, the Lazarus Wright Foundation, run by Baltimore City Council candidate Christopher Irvin,
there should be a safe way to collect them.
Granted a 2-year, $1.6 million city contract and handed a $414,000 advance. But according to an email exchange between the nonprofit and the Baltimore Civic Fund, which oversees the city's nonprofit spending, within 4 months, the entire advance vanished. And when Irvin couldn't provide receipts for the missing money, the city investigating his spending, then demanding $129,000 be paid back. The city also requiring a laundry list of equipment be returned, costing about $8,000 according to Irvin's records.
It's clear that the city isn't properly vetting these nonprofits.
Taxpayer advocate David Williams believes had the city done their due diligence, Irvin declaring bankruptcy and his home currently in foreclosure should have prevented the partnership from taking place and your money from going to waste.
And you're sending it to a nonprofit. There is a lack of transparency, lack of accountability, and this is going to be a growing problem for Baltimore City taxpayers, is that more and more money is going to nonprofits.
Fox 45 sending questions to the mayor's office asking, why was Irvin's nonprofit selected for a city contract considering his financial hardships? What is the vetting process for granting public dollars to private nonprofits? And what will you do to prevent nonprofits from continuing to misuse taxpayer dollars in the future? So far, we have not heard back.
That means there's more and more chance for waste, fraud, and abuse.
Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
Well, Fox 45 News asked the mayor's office if they will be investigating exactly what the missing money was spent on And if any legal action will be taken. We did not receive a response on that. The city does confirm it is now working with the nonprofit on a payment plan to recoup the missing money. And this just into our newsroom. The 17-year-old suspect accused of killing 17-year-old Jeremiah Brogdon was found guilty of first-degree murder today. Prosecutors say the teen shot and killed Brogdon on the grounds of Mervo High School as school was getting out last September. It's not clear when he will be sentenced.
1 week from today, the Baltimore City Council will vote to determine whether acting police commissioner Richard Worley will be confirmed. Worley received a unanimous vote of support from a city council committee last week, but some lawmakers and the public still voiced concerns about the way police handled the Brooklyn Day mass shooting.
My top priority now, Brooklyn was a huge incident. We have to continue to address the shortcomings there and make sure it doesn't happen again. But my biggest thing is community policing.
Well, Fox 45 News sent several questions to city council members today asking if they intend to approve Worley's nomination or if the handling of the mass shooting gave them pause about that decision. We also asked council members if they think Worley is the best person to tackle some of Baltimore's public safety concerns. So far, we have not heard back.
Worley says juvenile crime and car thefts will be his top priorities if confirmed. This year, nearly 8,000 vehicles have been stolen in Baltimore. That's about 30 cars a day. About 3% of those end with arrests. And for people who do have their cars stolen, sometimes thieves are racking up tickets and the owners have to pay them.
They said, well, it would probably happen while it was stolen. They told me that. And I said, well, why should I have to pay for it? They said, well, we're not going to release your car unless you pay the 2 speeding tickets. They shouldn't make me a victim 2 and 3 times. I was a victim once with my car being stolen. I was a victim with the insurance company, and I was a victim with the city of Baltimore.
Well, the woman says the city also sent her a notice about having the right to sell her car if it wasn't reclaimed from the impound lot in 11 days. Fox 45 News asked Baltimore City Department of Transportation why victims are being expected to pay fines that are incurred while their cars were stolen. So far, we've not heard back.
Well, in Baltimore County, police will begin to offer software upgrades to Hyundai owners who have a standard key start ignition in their cars. This comes amid a rise in car thefts among Hyundais and Kias. It'll happen next Saturday, October 7th from 7 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. at the Thompson Hyundai in Dundalk. In addition to the upgrades, the department will be providing steering wheel locks. To see if you are eligible for the upgrade, you can find a link on our website, foxbaltimore.com.
If you have a stolen car story or know someone who's been impacted, we'd like to hear about it. Scan the QR code on your screen and tell us what happened or send us an email to news@foxbaltimore.com.
Yeah, it sounds like a war zone.
It's trauma on top of trauma, and we're sick and tired of this.
Frustration in Annapolis after a woman is shot outside her apartment building last night. Her husband says they were coming back from the grocery store when people opened fire for nearly 12 seconds, hitting the woman and several cars around her. Police believe the bullets were intended for someone else. No arrests have